The long-running legal drama between John Pesutto and Moira Deeming within the Victorian Liberals seems to have finally come to an end. But while the Victorian Liberals have solved this problem, it's certainly come with a cost. A very quick summary, because I'm sure most of you know the details of this very well by now. John Pesutto is a former leader of the Victorian Liberal Party, and Moira Deeming was a member of the Liberal Party for the state's upper house. She attended a rally which was gatecrashed by Nazis. John Pesutto falsely accused her of associating with Nazis, and she sued him for defamation and was awarded $300,000 in damages and upwards of $2 million in legal fees. Now, John Pesutto, during the proceedings of this defamation trial, was actually deposed as leader of the Victorian Liberal Party, at least in part because his words against Moira Deeming did set off a little bit of factional infighting within the Victorian Libs, Moira being a member of the more culture war right wing of the party, and Pesutto himself being positioned more as a moderate. But long story short, John Pesutto, a former leader of the Liberal Party, has to pay Moira Deeming upwards of $2 million to cover the damages to her reputation, as laid out by the court, and her legal fees, which John did not have the ability to pay. This put the Victorian Liberal Party in a very awkward position. Not only was a member of their party from the upper house suing a member from the lower house, but there was also the risk now that John Pesutto would be declared bankrupt, which in Victoria disqualifies you from serving in Parliament. That would lead to a by-election in Pesutto's seat, which is by no means safe. It is a very marginal seat, and the Liberal Party at this point does not want to risk a defeat, while they might possibly have a chance to capitalise on the fact that the Labor state government in Victoria isn't that popular at the moment. So not wanting to risk a by-election that they could lose, yesterday, the Victorian Liberal State Executive came together to vote on whether or not to give John Pesutto a loan so that he could avoid bankruptcy. Now, John himself had about $700,000 in assets and in donations that he had put together to try and pay off that monumental legal debt to Moira Deeming. But he was still more than $1.5 million short, and that is what he was asking the party for. This proposal was not without controversy inside the Liberal Party, particularly with the right faction, who, from their perspective, looking at this whole thing, a moderate, defamed a member of their faction, was then sued for defamation, and now the party as a whole is going to throw him a lifeline of a $1.5 million loan. Money which a lot of Liberals think would be better spent on the campaign that is coming up next year at the state level in Victoria. So there were more than a few critics of the loan proposal, including Moira Deeming herself. And I made a video about this before, but she, in an attempt to try and save her political career in the midst of this, actually offered to delay making John Pesutto pay back most of that money if she was guaranteed pre-selection at the next Victorian state election. And when she presented this offer, Moira kind of presented herself as being on a moral high horse, that she was doing that because she didn't want the party to spend membership money and fundraised money that was going to go to the election on bailing out John. But it was clearly just a way to ensure that the members of her local Liberal Party didn't pre-select somebody else to run in her division of the Victorian upper house. The Victorian Liberal Party outright rejected that proposal by Deeming. Say what you will about the Liberal Party, at some level, however flawed, they are democratic, and they weren't just going to abolish pre-selection rules to guarantee her a seat in the next Parliament. Oh, and the cherry on top of that offer by Moira Deeming was the fact that after she made it, a member of the public actually referred her to the state's Anti-Corruption Commission. So we'll see where that ends up. But all that aside, yesterday, the state executive came together, reviewed the offer on the table for John Pesutto, and they did end up loaning him that $1.5 million to prevent his bankruptcy and to keep him in Parliament. Interestingly enough, the Liberal Party, party of business and finance that it is, has actually issued this loan through its investment arm, and this is being sold to party members as something that they will get a return on. John has had to put up a lot of collateral for this loan, and he's also going to have to pay at a market rate of repayment to the party, which at the moment will probably be around 6% per annum. On top of that is a commitment to working with Liberal campaign fundraisers to an extreme extent. So basically, John is going to have to get out there, work the hard yards, and fundraise as hard as he possibly can for the Liberal Party for the foreseeable future. According to The Guardian, there are some projections within the Liberal Party that they could get a $1 million return on investment from this. So over the course of the lifetime of this alone, John could end up paying back the Liberal Party $2.5 million. And that's great and all for long-term investments for the Liberal Party, but there is an election next year. And the Liberal Party has effectively lost $1.5 million that could have gone to that campaign, which is instead preventing the bankruptcy of one of their members of parliament. Because here's one consideration. They've done this to prevent a by-election and to save one of their MPs. John Pesutto, as I've said before, is in a very marginal seat. What happens if he doesn't win re-election in 2026 and they spent that $1.5 million effectively for nothing? Moira Deeming, for her part, has responded by saying that the party will just continue to find ways to annihilate her. And I think that's pretty evident that Moira at this point is kind of just going to swing until she's gone. Moira has done so much damage to the state Liberal Party, in my opinion. And it seems that that opinion is shared by members of her own party. The entire reason that she made that offer to try and save her pre-selection is that she is very aware of the fact that the Liberals in the Western Metropolitan region that she is from are not going to re-nominate her to run for the party in 2026, or at least are not going to put her high enough on the list to get elected to Victoria's upper house. So knowing that her political career realistically is over at this point and she has no shot at re-election in 2026, she started tweeting things like this, complaining about how the party has endlessly harassed her, mocked her, attacked her, and that she herself is the true victim here. And look, everyone's interpretation of this series of events is valid. It is simply an opinion of what has transpired, but I genuinely feel like I want to ask her, what did she think was going to happen? Look, Pesutto defamed her. That is an established legal fact. She was attending an anti-trans rally which was gate-crashed by Nazis, and Pesutto incorrectly said that she associated with those Nazis. That was a lie, and that was defamation. Pesutto should not have defamed her. Pesutto should have settled before this ever went to court. But in my opinion, the biggest point of escalation was when Moira Deeming allowed a New South Wales property developer to finance her legal costs and go into this case knowing full well that when she won, it would utterly destroy Pesutto and her own political career. Let me remind you guys, John Pesutto paid the $300,000 that he owed Moira Deeming for defaming her. But he was also ordered to pay costs, what she had to pay for her legal team, which was the $2 million. A legal team that Moira Deeming was able to afford only because she was financed by a New South Wales property developer who apparently took a specific interest in this case. That is ridiculous. Look, I can understand that lawyers are expensive. Legal fees are really up there. But in this particular case, the legal fees were almost 7 times what the actual payment over the defamation was. Because I think it is fair to ask, if you are hiring that much legal assistance for a case, at what point is it fair for other people to begin to ask the question, well, are you really getting $2 million worth of legal representation because you need it to win the case? Or are you getting that in the hopes that when or if you win, that you will utterly bankrupt and financially ruin the person that you were going head-to-head with in this case? Look, I don't know what Moira Deeming was thinking. I'm just trying to rationalize what I'm seeing in front of me, and it just doesn't make sense. I don't know how she saw this working out for her. Because where we are now, at the end of the day, the Liberal Party is $1.5 million poorer than it was before this. Her established political rival, John Pesutto, is not going to lose his seat. There will not be a by-election. He will not be bankrupted. And she seemingly has ensured that this is the end of her political career.